Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. It is just 2 o'clock, and we're glad that you are with us on this balmy and sunny afternoon in May. We are just going to give everyone a minute or so to get logged on, but in the meantime, I'm going to go over a few housekeeping details. First of all, my name is Amy Wong, and I'm the president of .org Solutions. I will be joined today by Sarah Lundenberger, who is our Director of Nonprofit Consulting. I will be presenting today's session, and Sarah will be monitoring the Q&A and the chat box. A couple quick things about this webinar today is only the panelists and moderator are going to be able to be speaking or visible on the call. All of you will be muted as participants today. And this is not a Q&A format exactly. So for those of you who have been on our webinars before, you're probably used to more of an interactive session where we're talking to a particular speaker, someone who is an expert in a particular area or field, and we have more of a conversational kind of format. We figured today, because of the topic that we're talking about, that it would be really good to have a little bit more of a slide format, because I do have quite a bit of data to share with you as part of today's session. So it will be a little bit different in the way that the format is, but that does not mean that we don't encourage questions throughout the webinar. In fact, we encourage questions throughout the webinar. So anytime that you would like to ask a question, please do so in the Q&A and in the chat. So just a quick intro and topic overview. As I mentioned, my name is Amy Wong, and I'm the president and founder of .org Solutions. Actually, we're celebrating our 12th anniversary this month, and we're very excited about that for .org. I've held several leadership roles in nonprofit organizations prior to starting .org, and have been a participant in the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program. I've worked with Jumpstart and the Women's Network Community Leadership Institute, among quite a few other things. Also, I'm a frequent blogger on leadership, marketing, and fundraising. So a lot of the content I am going to be sharing today is stuff that I've either written about or that I've done a lot of research on. So I'm happy to be able to share this information with you today. And I'm an avid reader and student of leadership in all things nonprofit. So part of the whole reason we're doing these coffee shop sessions, and then also all of our other .org cafe items, is so that we can provide a lot of free resources to you in the nonprofit sector. So hopefully this session will be of value to you today. So if you are here to see or to learn more about improving your nonprofit's digital presence, you are in the right place. If you're expecting something else, hopefully you can just stay with us and enjoy our session today. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. We have a lot to cover today, and given the fact that we're not doing a Q&A format, I wanted to try to pack as much information into today's session as possible. And for those of you who joined us on time, I want to make sure that you are getting the most out of the time that you have today and be able to give you as much information as I can over the next hour. So the first thing that we're going to talk about today, really when we talk about digital marketing, is knowing what are some of the trends in digital marketing. And so, you know, I think it's really important to talk about where all of this is going, because I think especially in the nonprofit space, we tend to fall a little bit behind people who are in the B2C or the business to consumer sector, or even the B2B sector. And that is just, I think, a lot of times because of resources and because of things that are available to us. But also, I think there's a lot of focus on market research and things that happen in the B2C space that don't necessarily happen in the nonprofit sector. So the first thing I want to do is talk about, you know, what are some things that today's nonprofit marketer and fundraiser can do to kind of take a page from the B2C playbook. So there are a variety of things that we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about inbound marketing, which is maybe a new topic that some of you don't really know what that is, and we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about the importance of conversational and personal communications, which I think nonprofits do a really good job of doing, but we're going to talk about how you can maybe do that a little bit better. We're going to talk about something that I thought was really cool, and I'll be sharing this graphic later on the capitalizing on micro moments. And this is a term I had never heard until I started doing some additional research for this presentation. And I think these are going to be really great things for you as you do some of your communications planning. Marketing automation. This is something that we've been spending a lot of time working on with our clients and ourselves over the last 1.5 years, 2 years, and it's really kind of a life-changing thing, time saver. We'll talk about automation and the importance of it. We're going to talk about highly visual. So when I say highly visual, today's digital media is a highly visual environment. We'll go over some of the things of what that means and how you can implement some of those strategies at your organization. We're going to talk about multi-channel, or what is also called omnichannel. So this might be a new term for some of you. For those of you who have been in some of our sessions before, we have talked about the importance of multi-channel, but one of the new buzzwords is omnichannel. So I figured I'd throw that on there. They're somewhat interchangeable. We'll talk about that as well. Many of you are already using social media for your nonprofit organization's marketing and fundraising communications. And we're going to talk a little bit more about diving into social and some things that you need to look out for and things that you need to be aware of. And then lastly, I want to talk about the importance of privacy. And this is a really hot topic right now as different legislation is coming into the US, and then also things that we're very familiar with and the things that many of our constituents are concerned about as well. So privacy is a big one. The first thing I'm going to do before we get started talking about all of that stuff is I want to talk a little bit about statistics and behaviors, because in order to really understand digital communications, one of the things that you have to understand is consumer behavior. And what are people thinking? How are they reacting? And what is it that they are responding to or not responding to when they are in the digital environment? And when we talk about digital environment, we're talking really about any way that your organization is presenting itself in the digital space. So it's how consumers find you or how constituents find you, whether it's on your social media, through your electronic communication, your website, search engines, all of those kind of things is what we're talking about when we're talking about digital. So much of the research that has been done on consumers as they respond to consumer goods. But I think a lot of the statistics that we're talking about today are very transferable to the regular space. So when we look at some of the consumer insights, I wanted to share some statistics that I thought were very, very interesting. And so I think if we put our if we start to think about how we react to things, we think, gosh, if we have a question, we are in the age where we want an immediate response. So whether it's we text somebody and we expect them to text us back right away, we email someone, we're expecting an immediate email response, or if we are on a phone call and we expect to talk to a human, get our answer right away, we're really expecting an immediate response. And this is relevant to nonprofits because those same people that may be expecting that response from a store or a bank or anything like that are also going to be expecting that same type of response from you. So 82% of people want an immediate response. 63% of consumers are also highly annoyed with generic advertising blasts. I don't know about you, but I got to the point where I was getting so many emails from retailers into my main inbox. I actually built a filter to separate all of them out so that I could actually get to my real email and the things that mattered to me in between all of the weeds of all those advertisers. So I got to the point of being highly annoyed. I actually did something about it. A lot of people don't. 80% of people are really more likely to do business with a company if it offers personalized experiences. And I think many of us are seeking that right now, that, we don't want to be just a number. We want to be someone who is valued. We want to feel like we're heard, and we want to find organizations that we can trust. And so, if you're having people who are looking whether they want to donate to you or they want to use your services or they want to participate in activities that your nonprofit offers, they're really looking for companies that are offering a personal experience to them so that they know it's something that is going to be worth their time or worth their investment. And to kind of top that off, 90% of people find personalization appealing. And I'm not just talking personalization such as, you know, you got my name right in the solicitation letter or the email you're sending me, but you're sending me content that's relevant to me. So if we take this at a very base level, you can talk about maybe a personalized donor communication that is to donors who have only given to a particular thing. And so maybe that message is about they gave to an arts organization to support a specific production. So maybe that arts organization sends out a personal email to them that says, dear Amy, we really thank you for helping us put on this special performance of XYZ. Our patrons loved it, they enjoyed it. That's a personal experience to me because I feel like they have taken the information that they know about me and have used it to communicate with me well. So one of the other trends, and for those of you who were on our webinar last month, we did talk about how consumer behavior is changing. And so for the most part, when we were able to go online and start researching things, many of the things that we were researching were consumer goods. So maybe you needed a new refrigerator or a new washer and dryer or a new lawnmower. You typically went online and you started looking for reviews. You started looking at pricing. You started looking at reliability and all of those other things that were part of those particular consumer goods. Well, because people have spent a lot of their time recently in the last 14 months online, they're also researching other things too. So they're spending time doing the same type of research that they did in consumer goods into the nonprofits that they are looking to support or that they want to become involved with. So they're not just looking for stuff, they're looking for things that they can be involved with. And then, in the last year, the same thing, all generations were starting to be forced online. Even the older generations who sometimes we wrote off as not being as technologically savvy, those are the folks now that are doing online grocery buying. They're doing a lot of other things online that they didn't used to be able to do because they just weren't, it wasn't something they were accustomed to, but the pandemic forced that upon them. So, understanding that more people are going to be online, more people are interacting in the digital space is really why nonprofits need to start looking at things a little bit differently in terms of their communications. So what should a nonprofit do? So I thought this was a really great quote that I found. And, I like to insert instead of buyers, maybe it's donors or maybe it's clients or maybe it's patrons. But today's buyers expect to find what they're looking for now, not later. And as we prepare for the future, it will be more important than ever for businesses, and this is where I insert and nonprofits, to be available across a broad spectrum of channels and to make sure you're communicating the way people prefer to communicate. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this as we talk in the next section about breaking down the trends. So I'm going to go through all of the things I talked about in the beginning. So I do want to just say, if anybody has questions, please, I'm going to go through these relatively quickly just because there is quite a bit of information, but I want to make sure that if you do have questions, ask them during these specific sections. So the first thing I want to talk about is inbound marketing. And so inbound marketing is really it's different. So we kind of talk about inbound as using content to build trust and to drive users to your organization. And so unlike outbound marketing, which is pushing out requests for engagement, such as solicitations, cold calls, advertising, so like bus signs, billboards, direct mail, things like that, where you are actually asking someone to take action. Inbound actually builds trust through ebooks, education, blogs, online content, webinars, and things like that in order to provide engagement opportunities with people and build trust. And so, it is, especially in the nonprofit space, more so I think than some B2B and B2C on the for-profit side. I think nonprofits have to have really a balance of both. And that is because you need to make sure that you are letting people know about what you're doing, because you probably do have a fair amount of supporters and people in your database that you already communicate with. So, you need to be able to solicit them on a regular basis. You need to be able to communicate with them about how their donations are being used. You need to be able to communicate new activities and programs that may be of interest to them. And so outbound needs to remain a key part of your communication strategy. Where inbound can come into play for a lot of nonprofits is really more on what I would call the donor acquisition side. And this is an area of frustration, I think, for a lot of nonprofits, is that where do we find new people, new donors that are going to want to support us? And I think that's a challenge that a lot of nonprofits have, especially nonprofits that don't have maybe a built-in source, such as alums or patients or people who have come to their organization or use the services that might be good volunteers or good donors. And so the opportunities that you have might be opportunities that are very different. So maybe you're an arts organization who is looking to engage younger patrons in certain types of arts, but maybe younger people feel intimidated about going to an orchestra concert, or might feel intimidated going to a high-end exhibit of any sorts. Maybe you talk about a new person's guide to attending an orchestra event, or understanding classical music, or some things that can be used to bring up young audiences. Maybe if you are, an organization that works on, homelessness, maybe it's getting people to understand, root causes of homelessness, or things that people can do to help the homeless, or things of that nature. So these are educational kinds of things that can go out that can be help people understand what it is that you're doing. So what are some of the other things that you can do? So it's really important to have an inbound strategy. And I will say that it's really easy to just start talking about a million things that you could do for inbound, but having an actual strategy that's manageable is really important, because I can talk from experience that, if you start to plan too many things, you will have way too many things going on. You'll never get them done. So if you have a strategy, you'll be able to think about, like, what are some things that we can do throughout the year, whether it's a blog or a webinar or an educational, one sheet or something that you can put online to talk to people about what you do. Having separate landing pages. So if somebody is interested in information on plan giving, if you're offering plan giving, maybe you have a landing page that has a guide to making a plan gift that you can put on your website that they can download and get for information. Other contact forms, does every page on your website have a contact form and a way for somebody to engage with you? I would say probably not. Most likely there's a contact us that's kind of stuck way bottom at the page, but look for different places on your website where you may be able to have contact us forms, or do you have questions, or are there pop-ups that you can put on your website that will ask people if they'd like to receive more information. We can talk about different campaigns, and these are typically around email. So, you think of a drip campaign versus high value marketing. So a drip campaign are those annoying emails that I get from all the retailers all the time. I'll have to say I ignore them most of the time, but I know last weekend I went in and found 2 coupons in them. But those were those drip campaigns that, it's like that dripping faucet that just annoys you after a while. But you still need the water. So I actually went in and I got some coupons and I left the rest in there. High value marketing campaign is actually providing people who engage with you information that they find is relevant. So maybe someone makes a gift to your organization online and it's their first gift. What are some follow-up approaches that you can take with them to make them feel engaged? It might be immediately they get the receipt. A week from now, you're providing them with a specialized thank you and welcome from the director of development. Maybe a couple weeks later, you have information on a program that they're supporting that goes to them. And so it's keeping people engaged so that you are in front of them all the time, so that they continue to see you through and hear you through the noise. And then, SEO for many is a very difficult one to talk about, because SEO is is like this mystical thing that we hear how SEO is very important, but how SEO is dead. And I think any given couple of months that seems to change. but there is a lot of value in SEO because SEO is built upon keywords that people are looking for to find your organization. So understanding when you're writing this content, whether it's your inbound content or outbound content on the digital side, making sure that it has keywords in there that people may be searching for so that they can find you online. So the next thing I would like to talk about is conversations and personalization. So this is a trend that I think nonprofits do extraordinarily well in the conversation section. But I think on the personalization side, there's some really cool things that can be done. As I mentioned before, people are really looking for immediate responses and real one-to-one conversations. I think, again, in the last 14 months, we've lost a lot of those one-to-one conversations just because we have not been in person. We've also lost them because a lot of things are being automated. So, you have to go through 45 steps in order to talk to a human on a phone call. And that really gets annoying with people, or you're talking with, you are talking with chat, which is becoming more and more popular. But conversations are really about ways that you can interact with the people who want to interact with you. And you have to make sure that you're not losing opportunities that are affording themselves to you. So what are some things that you can do? So I think most importantly, always look at your donors and users of your services as buyers. And I know that sounds very cold and may sound, but again, if you look at that type of approach and you develop personas around each of those people, it will really help you to communicate with them where they are, because I think you'll find that not every person likes to be communicated with in the same way. Different people at different stages of involvement with you are going to want to receive different types of communications. People who are more involved are probably going to expect to receive more communications. People who have a casual relationship with you may not want to receive any communications, and you're going to have other people who are in between. But by developing personas, you're going to have a very clear understanding of what types of groups you are going to be able to segment and how you can communicate with them. One tool that I've suggested in the past, and for those of you who have been on our sessions and have read about the blogs, HubSpot has a great persona development tool that's free and it's fun, and you can create these little avatars, but it's very simple, and it helps you to identify the types of people that you want to have involved and that are involved with your organization. So I highly recommend developing your personas with that. Also improve information on your website. One of the trends we talked about was how people are going online a lot more to talk about or to look for information, not just for consumer goods, but they're looking for information on your nonprofit. I can tell you, I've spent a lot of time over the years looking at nonprofit websites for the work that we do, and it's amazing how hard it is to find a lot of different types of information. So sponsorship information for events has historically been horrible to find. Event information itself overall has been very difficult to find. Finding information on who your board or who your key staff members are is really critical information if you want to contact somebody. So think, I would say, and we do this ourselves, is, start off with a very thorough review of your website, and even talk to some of your constituents about what is available and what's not available on your website that should be available. So, make sure you're looking at your website and do that regularly. I think the times of set it and forget it with a website until you redo it again are gone. It doesn't need to be as dynamic as your social media. It serves a very different purpose. It's more static as opposed to dynamic, but it doesn't mean static mean it's done. So make sure you put time into your website. If your website doesn't have, well, I shouldn't say just your website, everything that you do in the digital space should have a call to action or some sort of form for someone to use. I am just blown away by reading social media posts that have 0 calls to action to them. That does not mean call to action that every time you post on social media that you ask for a gift. Or it doesn't mean that you have to have somebody click. A call to action can be something as simple as, maybe join us in thanking or congratulating so-and-so. It might be a matter of somebody, clicking on something or sharing a post or providing information to someone else. But always make sure you're thinking of, like, when somebody reads this, what do you want them to do with it? It's not just posting out for the sake of posting. It's what do you want that person to take action? Chatbots, I'm still, I love chatbots and I understand the value in chatbots, but chatbots I think are difficult for probably small nonprofits to do, because you either have to have everything built and so that they automate, or you actually have to have someone manage that chatbot. So, if you're going to consider using chatbots, it's one of those things that you have to figure out, is it something that you can manage, or is there somebody on your team that's able to manage that on a regular basis? If not, it sounds like a really cool thing to have, but it may not be right for you. And then targeted communication. So as I mentioned before, you may want to segment your communications by where people are in their involvement with your organization. This doesn't mean that you have to create 15 different newsletters for 15 different constituencies. You can have the same types of communications in those particular things, but you can maybe just tweak some copy a little bit so that it's more relevant to that audience. So make sure your communications are targeted and going to the right people in the right way, at the right time, in the right manner. All right, so the next thing I wanted to talk about is micro moments. And I thought this was just a very fascinating graphic that I found on through a blog, but it actually resides on thinkwithgoogle.com. And there are 4 different micro moments. And yes, these are really talking about consumers, but I really translated them more into how can you look at this as a nonprofit. So there are those I want to know moments when someone, sorry, this is microscopic on my screen here. When someone is exploring or researching, but is not necessarily in the purchase mode. So this might be someone who is interested in the services or programs that you offer. This might be a donor who has things that they want to donate to your organization. So maybe they have cleaned out their house this spring and they have a bunch of furniture and clothing and stuff, and they're trying to find, I want to find someone who I can donate this to that aligns with my mission. Those are I want to know moments when people go online. Then there's the I want to go moments. And that's when somebody is looking for a business or is considering buying a product at a nearby store. So maybe they're looking to, do I want to go to your nonprofit or this other nonprofit for a particular service? Do I want to go to maybe a play, or do I want to go to the art museum? Do I want to do one thing, or do I want to volunteer here versus volunteer there? So those are those I want to go moments, but I still am looking for information on figuring out where I would like to go. Then there's I want to do moments. And this is when people are really looking to take action. And so this is when someone really needs help with something. This is maybe when they contact you about, I want to make a stock gift to your organization, but I'm not exactly sure what I need to do that. Or I'm interested in making a planned gift to your organization. What is it that I need to know in order to do that? Or it's I want to volunteer for your organization, or want to become involved in some way in your organization. How do I do that? And then there's the I want to buy moments. This is when the people have gathered all the information that they need and they're ready to make that decision. So that stock person who wants to give stock, they've done their research, they know you're the organization that they want to be in, they've gotten the information, and then they actually make that gift. So these micro moments are different stages and require different kinds of communication. They require different kinds of information that's available to people. And so as you're planning some of your communications, even looking for on your website, you might want to go through this process and say, if somebody's coming through at each of these stages, are they going to find what it is that they need on our site so that they feel like they've properly engaged with us and that they can trust us to do what it is that they need to do? And again, this is very consumer, customer, constituent, donor focused, which is really the very most important thing about digital. So the next thing I want to talk about is marketing automation. And again, this was kind of a really cool graphic that there's so many things that we now can automate, because automation is a critical thing to help us be, I guess, more efficient. And I'll talk about what a marketing automation is, but it really involves a lot of different things. So you'll see it involves, what can you automate? Your calendar, your mail, can you automate content, social campaigns, all of these kinds of things. So it takes on a lot of different forms. I'm not going to dive into each of these. We could probably be here for the next week. But let's talk about what marketing automation and what is it. So really what marketing automation is the use of technology that, in my mind, saves you time, helps you stay in front of your donors, constituents, prospects in a thoughtful and relevant way, and it provides consistency and relevancy. So I've talked about this quite a few times, and I had a statistic in a presentation that I did a couple weeks ago for AFP, that the average person now is receiving between 6,000 or seeing between 6,000 and 10,000 marketing messages a day. That's a lot. And so using marketing automation allows you to continue to be front of mind in front of people without being annoying. And I think that's the part of marketing automation that's really important. So what are some things that you can do? Not everyone is going to have, high-level software to be able to do this, but it is something that if it's something that is of interest to your organization, it actually pays for itself. So, but you can, if you don't have that software, there are ways that you can set up systems to trigger particular events. So let's say in your donor software, you have a new donor comes in, and any donor that's $500 or more automatically gets a welcome or a thank you from the CEO of your organization. So it's, that you can trigger that particular thing. Okay, $500 donation comes in, CEO gets an email, or the CEO's assistant gets an email that they're going to be able to know that they need to write a particular thank you note for that. So they can be manual triggers. These can also be, email reminder triggers. So maybe you say like, okay, we know on the 3rd of every month, we are going to send out a particular correspondence to all of our donors or all of our volunteers about things for the upcoming month. And that trigger can have you do things automatically. So it's just getting things out of your head and out of people doing it manually in order for it to go out on a regular basis and also save you time. As I mentioned, you can also invest in tools. We're big advocates of HubSpot that actually help you set up automated workflows so you can set it and forget it. And those are great for contact forms and people, who are making gifts or interacting with you on some way. And so those are things that you can just set and forget, and they actually can provide meaningful experiences for donors. You can automate emails around a particular campaign. A lot of the, MailChimp, Constant Contact, those types of systems can also set up automated emails around a particular campaign that you can build all at once and just have them go out. And then also automating tasks and reminders to stay track and meet goals. So I mentioned tasks and setting those reminders, but it could be like, it doesn't have to be just donor communication. It can be reminders for you to do things and to stay on task. And again, marketing automation is much more complex than this, but these are just some highlights of some things that you could do. So the next thing I want to talk about is highly noticeable visuals. And so I think most of us spend a fair amount of time on our mobile devices, and I'm talking tablets and phones as opposed to laptops and desktops. And so I'm sure you've all figured out, it's like, gosh, the things that catch your eye, especially when you're maybe on your social media feed or you're in any other kind of digital environment on your phone or your tablet, is the things that jump out to you are visuals, such as video, really great photography and images. People really are, those are the things that they want to see when they're on their mobile. When they're on their mobile, they read less text. I mean, think of your own behavior on your mobile. If you have to read a lot of things, you're generally just scrolling right by and going to something else. Webinars and online training are really highly visual. These are things where people want to see graphics. They want to see people. They want to interact so that they're noticeable and that you can participate. And then you can also get what you need relatively quickly without having to dive too deeply into it. So what are some things that you can do? It used to be that video was very, very expensive, and video still can be very expensive. And I am not against, high-end video. I think it definitely is very relevant. But because of, you think of TikTok and you think of Instagram and you think of, Facebook Live, and you think of all of these things like the webinars that we're doing and others are doing, a lot of us are much more comfortable being on camera than we were, 14 months ago. It's not as expensive to produce video as it was in the past. And so, we have great mobile devices that produce really great photos and videos. Proper lighting isn't even that expensive. We actually here at .org purchased a ring light with the little camera thing in the middle for like $35 on Amazon. And it produces really great stuff. So even little videos thanking your donors or having your constituents thank donors or sending out a quick message or tip. If you're a mental health agency, maybe it's like, hey, we've got these mental health tips that we can help you with, your families and things like that in these times. So, think about some little things that you can do, and they don't have to be long. Quick 15 seconds, 30 seconds max are awesome. Same with what do you do with those videos? Embed them on your website. You can put them on YouTube. You can do Facebook Live. You can do YouTube events. There's a lot of places that you can put them, but definitely embed video on your website if you can, instead of linking out. Because if you embed them, you get better SEO that way, especially if you have tips and things that people are looking for. It'll drive traffic to your website. And then also visually represent your programs and impact and graphics and photos, especially if you're using them in a digital environment, so that people can have a very clear understanding of what you're doing. And again, because they're on mobile, they can scroll through it quickly. And just a quick couple statistics here, when it comes to how people learned about new products or services. 70% of consumers say they've shared a brand's video, and 53% of consumers say that watching product videos makes them more confident in online purchase decisions. So if you see this, about 70% of people prefer to learn via video. So if you have something that you can share that they can learn, a quick video is a great way to do it. So I want to talk about social as well. And I think many of you probably are already in the social environment, you're using social. But because so many people are on social, we always have to watch about what are some things that we can tweak so that social can be used better and so that we're better engaging with people in the environment. And because of the way social feeds work, the more people react, the more people comment, the higher that goes into a particular person's feed. And so when we talk about social media, especially when we talk to nonprofits, you cannot be all things to all people unless you have a very large social media team or outsource it to a large social media team. So the most important thing that you can do is know where your constituents are most frequently and spend your time there and have really great strategy around it. So that's where your personas are going to help you, so that, not everybody belongs on TikTok. Not everybody belongs on LinkedIn. Not everybody belongs on Twitter. Not everybody belongs on Facebook or Instagram or Pinterest, but there are organizations who do, and they should really make sure that, their organization is where it should be on social media. But some things that you can do in order to just, stay relevant on social media is to post regularly and strategically. And so I say this because, you know, I see organizations who post regularly, but regularly means just a lot, and that doesn't help either, because good posts may get pushed down by posts that aren't as relevant of content. Posts that are not having calls to action with them, posts that aren't clear. So make sure that, you know, you're strategically posting, maybe a mix of videos, graphics, newsletters, photos, stories, sharing information from other organizations that you partner with, or that have actually partnered with, you know, maybe other nonprofits or donors who have given to you, not individuals unless they're okay with that, but, you know, maybe a corporation has partnered with you on a project as an underwriter, or, you know, something like that as a sponsor. Make sure you're writing posts with clear calls to action to drive people to do something. I just suggest that you go through your social media and read through your posts and see, are people commenting? Are they liking? Are they just passing by your posts? And if you have posts that are doing better than others, maybe take a look and see, like, what was it in that post that may have caused people to do something, and interact with that post, and use that information to really plan out your strategy for other posts going forward. You know, it's good to even create stories on Instagram and Facebook if that is something that is relevant to your particular organization. Add links with information that has value to your followers. So, you know, maybe, you know, I'll go back to the mental health agency. So maybe the mental health agency has created a bunch of either white papers or documents that have some different information on it that might be relevant. They may say, like, hey, you know, here's, you know, right now people might be having a lot of mental health challenges. Here is our new guide to talking to your families about mental health, or dealing with your own mental health challenges. And there's links out to different things. Those are very, very popular. And again, it's a call to action. And then also, you know, there may be a time when buying an ad is a good idea. Ad buys on certain social platforms are cheaper than others. Facebook seems to be, from what I've seen, that's still the cheapest. But there might be times when buying an ad and doing some targeted advertising on Facebook is a really good idea. So there's two more things I want to talk about before we wrap up. And again, please forward questions along. The next thing I want to talk about is multi-channel and omnichannel. So what is this? Really, it's just marketing to donors, clients, and consumers across a variety of platforms. And so it's just basically saying, like, how do you talk to people where they are? And to be able to do that, you have to understand where your clients are, your donors, your prospective supporters are in their journey. Are they just finding out about you? Are they highly involved with you? Were they highly involved and no longer? Have they had a passive interest in what you're doing? It's really, you know, knowing where they are will help you understand how to communicate to them and in which way. It also basically speaks to the fact that you have to have a consistent voice and a message that reflects on all platforms. So if you have one person who's doing all of your social media and they're not talking to the person who's handling all of the web digital, and you have a separate person who is writing for your e-newsletter, you might be not quite giving the same message that you would like to be, because, you know, donors may not fully read something on your website, but they may fully read something on your social media, or they may say, oh, I thought I remember reading that in the newsletter, but now that I see it on social media, I might read more. So it's important to have, you know, very consistent messaging. And I think that a lot of people feel as though you have to have all of this new content, all of these new things all the time. Repurposed content is a beautiful thing, and shared content is a beautiful thing. So, you know, people, if you repurpose content more than once, or you just redo it in a couple different ways, it really provides a lot of value and actually will help get to people a lot better than if you create a whole bunch of brand new content all the time. Plan your social media and your targeted email blasts that coincide with your direct mail pieces. So if you're sending a direct mail piece for a spring appeal, or you're planning your fall appeal or your year-end appeal, make sure that you have good social postings, good e-news blasts, and also good direct mail that all look as though they belong together. Again, segment those out by the different kinds of donors that you have, and make sure that you're talking to them about the things that are relevant to them. So you may have to do some additional segmentation, but if you have all of those things planned out, that's something that you can even plan months in advance and have it ready to go. And again, using maybe some automation, kind of set it and forget it. You can also plan campaigns on social to drive donations, traffic to your website for donations. So, maybe your social media campaign is about awareness of your organization, and maybe it's through a paid ad, but once they get there, the information is there. And there might be some really good paths where you can take them to support a particular cause or initiative that you're doing. This typically will work for an organization who may have a special circumstance where you want to have a call to action. So maybe it's an emergent situation, or maybe it's, you have a matching campaign where you want donors to match to build a building, or maybe you want people to participate in a program and you only have a certain number of spaces left. Those are some ways that you can drive people to your website and get them to be involved, whether that's through signing up for something or becoming a donor. We've already talked about automation workflows to help you target specific personas. Again, that's a little bit complex, but the more you can automate and get to people, the better. And then, give your prospective users and supporters access to a variety of information that has value. Sometimes that value may not come from you. We actually all the time are looking for information that we can share from people who are experts in their fields. You may find that there are other experts in your fields. Maybe you can collaborate with other nonprofits to share information that they have. Because really you try to have a rule of almost thirds, where you're creating your own content, share content of others, and then maybe some collaborative content that you can use. So, or maybe fun content. So, maybe some of your content via your social or via your electronic news or your e-blast might be a matter of, okay, here's some content from us. Here's some things our partners in the community are doing. We just thought you might want to know. And then the third thing might be, this week is, National Dog Week, and, please, support our organization because we support animals or something. So, there are fun things that you could do, or it's National Ice Cream Week, go out and grab yourself a scoop. People do like those fun things, and it kind of makes it look like you're a little bit more real and trying to relate to them. So the last thing I want to talk about before we take questions is privacy. And this is one thing that's not talked about, I think, a lot when people are talking about digital marketing. So really, what is privacy when we're talking about digital marketing? It's really about protecting and respecting the information of your constituents. And we as, you as nonprofits, and I say we because we work with a lot of nonprofits, we're dealing with a lot of data. So we're dealing with customer data, or client data, constituent data, donor data, volunteer data. It might be, if we're a school, it's student data and parent data. There's a lot of data out there. And I know I probably would say everybody on this webinar could agree that at one point they've gotten that e-news or that email that says, XYZ company has been the target of a data breach. Your information may have been compromised, or your information was compromised. This is not going to go away. And so it's very important that not only do you understand the importance of protecting the information that you have at your organization, but what are some of the other things you have to be concerned with in terms of communicating with people? So first and foremost, it's important to understand the rules. So if you're not familiar with GDPR and the California Privacy Protection Act, GDPR actually pertains to Europe. So if you have any constituents or people that you communicate with in Europe, there are some pretty stringent rules about what you can and cannot do in terms of emailing them. The same with the California Privacy Protection Act. California, they have the strictest law in the United States in regard to what you can do to communicate with people. And I don't know how many of you have started to see that when you go to a website that you have to disclose that the sites have to disclose that they are using tracking cookies, and you have to click OK or no. That a lot has to do with the California Privacy Protection Act and GDPR. So that just makes sure that organizations are either allowed or not allowed to collect information on your user habits on the website. The second thing is having to that point also, if somebody opts out and does not want to be communicated with, you cannot opt them back in. Do not opt them back in. If they choose to opt themselves back in, that's up to them, but that's not something you can do. So make sure if you're cleaning out your emails or things like that, make sure you do an opt-out list and you save that list so that you're not emailing to those people. The next thing is having a process for backing up and securing information. So make sure that you back up your information regularly and make sure that you have a process for it to be secure. Get permission if you're uploading information. Gone are the days where we could go and upload all those lists from the country clubs that somebody said, oh, here's my country club list. Let's just put all their names into the database, or let's take all these people that are on the annual report as donors and put them in our database. That is a no-no. And I am imagining that all of the GDPR and California Privacy Protection Act stuff is really going to start to be coming into a national scope here in the US. And so that is a no-no. Run your email list through a cleaning tool to improve send rates and reduce emails going to spam. So the lower your open rates, the more likelihood your emails will go to spam. So it's really good for you on a regular basis to run your email list through a tool like Kickbox, which is one that we recommend. And if you're interested, we can get special pricing on that. You can reach out to us, but it helps you reduce the number of emails going to spam. And it allows you to have the cleanest list possible to help your open rates improve. And then check your liability insurance and other insurance to make sure that if you have a data breach, you are covered. And then also make sure that you have plans in place that if you do have a data breach, that is covered as well. So digital, there's a lot. I think we all continue to try to understand where digital particularly fits into our strategies. But ultimately, if you're not working in digital, and you're not creating a digital strategy, you're just not going to have the impact that other organizations do. So if I were to say a couple things to just make sure, it's like, take a look at your website and make sure that there are opportunities for people to connect with you, whether that's a form or a call to action or types of information that would be relevant to them. Look through your social media, find out ways that people can interact with you or are interacting with you, and replicate those types of posts. And maybe say if a certain type of post never gets any kind of interaction, look to see, was it written clearly? Would somebody understand it if they knew to be here? Is it something that maybe just our people aren't engaging with and is just taking up space? So, and then also, looking at how can you not just rely on the letter or the direct mail piece, and how do you build a campaign and a strategy around your solicitations so that you're reaching people in a multitude of ways where they are. So with that, I am actually going to take some time for questions if anybody has any questions.
There aren't any questions yet coming in, but Amy, can you just take a few minutes to talk a little bit about persona development? I think that we talk about that a lot, but I don't know that a lot of people know exactly what a persona is and why it's important for their marketing.
Yeah, that's actually a really good question, Sarah. So personas are, I would say, for lack of a better term, fake people that you make up that represent the people that are, that you either A, currently communicate with, or B, want to communicate with. So when I say personas, maybe a persona would be Dan the donor. So Dan the donor, what we know about Dan is in his 70s. He is recently widowed. He and his wife were long-term supporters of your organization. Dan is in good health and is very active. Actually is a very high user of email, but not so much on social media. Really prefers in-person conversations and gets his information from his former work colleagues and from newspapers and trade publications in the industry that he was in. So what the persona tells me about Dan is it tells me a lot about how he communicates with people, how he likes to be communicated with. And so when I think about maybe the communications for our, maybe the communications for your older donors, you start to think about, okay, well, maybe when we communicate with older donors, we do know that they're high users of email. So we have to figure out, what kind of email would be really good for them. And in those emails, what is particularly relevant. So you can have personas for a variety of things. Maybe one of your personas is a client persona. Maybe your client persona is someone who has recently lost a job. They have no savings, no extra income. It's the first time they've had to be on any kind of public assistance. What are some ways that you can communicate with them that would be different? Well, maybe they don't have high access to internet, so they're not going to be communicating with you as much on because they don't have money for a full data plan, but maybe text would work where they can do things via text because text is included in their plan. Or maybe you do have to work with some direct mail and actually use paper communications to be able to communicate with somebody. So, personas are really about helping you understand the people that you're interacting with. Because I think a lot of times, as marketers, we default to the way we receive communication or what we think should be the right communication, as opposed to identifying who the people are that we're communicating with. All right. Well, we have about 2 minutes to go. So the last thing I'd like to talk about would just be our upcoming coffee shop webinars. So our next webinar will be June 22nd at 2 p.m. And we're going to actually talk about all of this digital stuff. It is very complex, but how do we use the information we get from digital and other data? How do we use it? So go ahead and sign up for our June 22nd webinar. And this will actually be our last webinar until September. We're going to take a little bit of a break over the summer, but we hope that you will join us on June 22nd for our coffee shop webinar on data analytics. And then also too, if you're interested, sign up for our blog. We do a blog that goes out every week, and then our weekly newsletter if you want more information on all of the industry trends and tips and tricks and things that can help you be better for your nonprofit. So thank you so much for coming today. If you want to reach out to me or Sarah Lundenberger, our information is on the screen. And again, thank you so much. I think I have do we have a chat that just came up? Oh, we have a thank you for great info. So again, thank you everybody for participating and hope you have a great day.